Hey everybody, this is Chris, and I just wanted to show off. I'm not trying to show off. I told him already. I'm kind of embarrassed about how much shit I've accumulated, like music related and things like that. It's like how I'm a collector, right? And then you're a collector, and pretty soon you're not. You're something else. They have TV shows for that on that stupid network. I wanted to show you my comedy collection. This is just one wing of the Clark Ive, and these are comedy records. So the records date back from the early days of comedy, some of the ethnic humor, I guess they would call it, and it's a little, we'll talk about that, all the way up and through Dave Chappelle on vinyl there. And I'm kind of mad at Dave Chappelle. He's kind of a dick. I don't know, whatever. And so I want to start off here with the early ones. Here's one, and this is Moran and Mac. If I'm not mistaken, and I may be mistaken, it might be just another racist duo. I don't know. I get them confused back in the day. Doing, this one's called Two Black Crows in Hades. So, yep, part 1 and part 2 there. So that's always nice. And I'm sure that's probably on the interwebs. You could probably find that if you Google that one, if you choose to. Here's another one. This one's interesting. Walter C. Kelly. This is Grace Kelly's uncle. And he's doing voices. And I had talked about this before, but this is Darky Stories and Irish Stories. And the thing that I talked about in an earlier video from a few years ago was the fact that the labels were switched and reversed, which I believe is the first time in history recorded that reverse discrimination happened. Because it's, yeah. Anyway, that is also kind of terrible, you know. And a lot of people engaged in that kind of humor. But here's another one. This is we just celebrated we marked, that's how it is, you say marked, not celebrated. We celebrated good things and you mark bad things. Okay, we just marked the anniversary of the death of this man whose name originally was Adolf Marx, which sounds like some kind of Nazi communist thing. But no, he changed his name later on, actually before Hitler, because I think after Hitler, if you had a name like Adolf, they would probably be like, and nowadays it's popular again, go figure, with some crew. But Harp by Harpo, he played the harp, and that's why they call him Harpo, because he was like harping on things, just like I am. The other one, the 10-inch record, that was a 10-inch. This is pretty awesome. This is 10-inch, by the way, if you can't tell, because I'm such a huge man. I'm like 8 feet tall. I'm a baby Bigfoot, really. This is Tom Lehrer from Harvard University. This is an original 10-inch. I should have it in some kind of a protective sleeve, but I don't, because I want to enjoy these things. And so putting them in a sleeve is like a little bit like you can't feel it, you know. It's like I don't know, I just don't get any feeling when I put the comedy records in a sleeve. That's kind of weird. This one I like too, you know, because I like the subject matter, because that's something I think we can agree that is different. Nowadays they have, you know, legal marijuana, so they've done studies and whatever, but back in this time it was like kind of taboo, if you will. And I like this record, but there's kind of like some section of it that is like a little bit on the again, might as well kind of like have one of the old time ethnic records here, kind of like in that kind of stereotyping kind of way, and you know, I don't like that, so like it basically ruined the record for me. There's another Tom Lehrer record. I'm just gonna go through every single record here because I feel like it. This is this is when you get into the small independent labels, like local guys. This one's an autograph. Here's a guy who had a body act, you know, piano act on Cape Cod. he's a boogie woogie piano player, but he tells jokes and bodies, in Cape Cod. And there's it's dated 10/27/67, and it's an autograph from that fella. So that's kind of cool. This is one of my dad's records and one of my favorites, and one of the reasons why I kind of enjoy political humor. This guy, David Fry, did a record, and he imitated Nixon. He had people imitate Dr. Kissinger, and Gabe Kaplan is on this record. Welcome Back, Kotter. But it's a great record, and it's something that was in my family. My father enjoyed this record, so it's great to have it here, and especially with all the stuff going on now, it's interesting. Here's a little 45. Again, this is ethnic humor here. Bobby Hackett. No, Buddy Hackett. No, but Bobby Hackett was a jazz band leader, and Buddy Hackett is the guy who was like, drunk. There's a song called Ting Me a Tong. It's supposed to be like in an Asian dialect, because I know that because on the other side we have Chinese rockin' egg roll. So that's nice. Well, we frown upon that. But we get into a lot of that with the comedy records. There's a lot of like stereotyping and things like that people find a little off nowadays, and I understand that. But yeah, here's a great one. Second City. This is early Second City. Comedy from the Second City on Mercury Stereo. That's kind of cool. And then the Second City. This is a Second City CD set. Came out with a book probably 20 years ago or something. It's pretty cool. Bert and I love Bert and I. Bert and I is like Mainers, and it's Marshall Dodge and Robert Bryan. Again, doing like the old, my dad loved these records. This was my dad's record. I don't know, it's funny now, but at the time when you're a kid, you're like, what the fuck is this? This is a satire of Joe Kennedy. Not Joe Kennedy. Here I go again. I'm sorry, I did not mean to say that. I meant to say Joe McCarthy. Another Irishman, another drunk Irishman. Sorry, no offense. But this is a spoof on the McCarthy hearings from the 50s. And, would you believe Don Adams? Get Smart. This is a reissue, 1980 on Crescendo, GNP Crescendo, which is kind of like a budget thing. One of the bigger labels here. This is Fast Relief commercial. Somebody had written on here, but looks like this was spoofs of American commercials. This looks like it's this is kind of funny too, and we'll talk about Vaughn Williams. This is a little asterisk here. It says it's a Kennedy joke. This is, most of my records were bought in the Boston area, so there's big Boston over by radio stations. WBCN and the like was in the area that I lived in. This is a promo copy, so I know that's from a radio station, not to be sold. And this is before they had cutouts. They just put a little thing on there. And so this is interesting, little DJ notes here. Not for use OTA plus. I don't know what that means. Somebody probably does, and I could probably look it up, but I'm not going to. But that's kind of interesting. And, oh yeah, I don't know if I can show this here. We'll just do this just to be safe. These are the Body records. Like there's Rusty Warren. I think I have a couple of those. Seduction, Bachelor Style, and she's completely naked on the cover there. These are the records. Yep, it's on Fax Records. There are a lot of comedians did that. They would record in their living room and invite their friends in, and basically have them laugh like a little bit too much, so it looked like a club, but it was just them in their living room. Kind of funny. Here's another political comedian, one of my dad's favorites. He turned me on to this, and he turned me on to Lenny Bruce, and I kind of like would find Lenny Bruce recordings and play them for my dad, and so he really got me started on the whole comedy kick, especially political humor. and topical humor and things like that. Cartoons in stereo. I forget what this one is. This is just like another wacky record, because I got lots of wacky records here. Oh, my favorites. Bob and Ray, big influence on me. Bob and Ray humor. It's just kind of like, on the level, it looks like corny, and then when you dig deep, it's like really wild humor. It's kind of like one of my goals is to like appear this way, but really be that way. It's kind of like fooling people. Like, I don't know. That's kind of fun. Hollywood Squares. Of course, Paul Lynde is in there. Poor guy, Freddie Prinze is in there. Poor guy. Freddie Prinze, I was just thinking about him. He killed himself. John Davidson, he's still around. I see him all the time. But that's that one there. I'm gonna go. This is what I was talking about. Vaughn Williams. This is the guy whose career ended 60 years ago in November. This guy's career ended. He did a spoof on the Kennedy family, and did this sort of Boston accent, like Jackie and I would like to say that so like that was funny in like 60, 61, 62, 63, and then November 22nd and 63, it all of a sudden didn't become funny. And so yeah, that's sad. It's sad his career ended and John F. Kennedy's life ended, but whatever. Okay, here we go again. Woo, baby. This is Naughty Songs for Nice People, and I can relate to that because I'm both naughty and nice. Santa doesn't know what to do. For women only. Oh, well, maybe some of the men like this too. I don't know. That was the joke. You had to be like homophobic jokes here. Ooh, have I got hot nuts for you? Here's the songs here. The Horse with the Handsome Behind. Ants in Her Pants. Tessie the Teaser. He's the Queen of Fire Island. Okay, there you go with the, homophobic kind of crap. But hey, this is what I was talking about. Records, comedy, people like making light of situations. Here we go. The Price is Right. Bob Barker just died. That's topical, right? Topical. What did I say? I said topical. No, I said retro topicalism, and I think this would be a good example. Price is Right. Bob Barker's dead now, so it's like related to then and now. And she has got some balloons, and she's celebrating some kind of party, but I don't think it's any party that I'd want to go to. Oh, maybe actually. This is Victor Borge. And it's funny because I heard the other day, my mother and her family owned a boat. It was a Chris Craft, in Black Rock and Bridgeport, a fancy part of Bridgeport. And it was previously owned by Victor Borge. And he's a piano player, and he, would often fall off his piano stool, But he wasn't drunk. It wasn't like a Foster Brooks thing. And I think I have a Foster Brooks album. Oh, this is one of my favorites, too. This I listened to as a kid. My father's record, there's still like wax. It's funny, there's like wax on it somewhere. But we used to listen to this on the record player downstairs when they, go downstairs and play. Okay, and then we'd have the big hi-fi thing left over from the 50s, and we'd listen to this record. And I love this record. It's like, I still sing, Don't Buy the Liverwurst. And it was just a great record. And Mother, Hello, Father's not on that one, but that's, the same guy. And, here it is. My Son the Nut. And this is another one I got later. But I liked Alan Sherman a lot, and I don't know his whole story. Here's one of the biggest influences in my television growing up. All in the Family. And here's actually, that's a sealed copy. That's a sealed copy, ladies and gentlemen, of the All in the Family record, still sealed. Now, we can talk about the fact that it's still sealed, and maybe that's not a good idea, because sometimes when you have records that are still sealed, the shrink wrap continues to shrink, and the record get warped and the like. So I'm going to have to bag that one up. That's a nice one. And here's the second album, All in the Family. Great political humor again. And Shelley Berman, talk about the telephone thing. And I picked up a couple of those. Early Bob Newhart also, doing the hello, and you make a whole skit over that and of what people are saying on the other line. You can't hear them, but like it's a whole shtick, and it's great. Clay Tyson, Straight from the Horse's Mouth, recorded live at the Howard Theater. So this was like, at the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. This was the age of like black comedians just, stepping out and saying hi, and mostly getting shot down. And that's awful. Roscoe, here's another, this is an Italian comedic guy. It says Italian comic dialogue. So, that's another one where they have ethnic humor, and some people in that ethnic group would do humor about themselves and about their family and everything like that. Sometimes it crossed a line. Lyndon Johnson's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Earl Dowd and Alan Robin. Those are two, that's people you've heard of. But this is obviously 1968. I would say that this record came out, I'm guessing. That's the time period. That's right after Sgt. Pepper in 67. So that's good. Don't mind the sounds there. We got like a bunch of dumbasses with big, loud cars, and I've talked about that before. But anyway, this is the best of what's his name. And to be honest with you, at this point, years later, I don't even know what his name is. So I guess it's great. So now here we go with Alan Robin. Now, I saw this cover in another video that I was watching today, and I don't remember what the controversy was about this. But again, he's doing, I don't know, stuff. Let's just say that. And, there we go. This is the Big Bambino. The big blah, 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 blah. And it's got all this, and it has the rolling paper in it, and Cheech and Chong, and if you know what I'm talking about. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyway, okay, so now this is another Earl Dowd record, Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was the vice president under Nixon, and he got in trouble with the taxes, and they had to throw him out, and they brought Gerald Ford in. This is Irish humor. Okay, now you're talking. Now you're up my alley here. I'm guessing there's going to be some jokes about alcohol, so that's a real trigger. Just going to let you know, if you have any issues with alcohol as I do, this might be a trigger. So we'll listen to it anyway because we're adults. And, speaking of Italian humor, ethnic humor, Pat Cooper, who was around during, I remember he was on the radio with Howard Stern, probably in the 90s at some point, but he was around for quite a while. I'm sure he's dead now. A lot of these folks are probably dead, and maybe they think that's funny. I don't think it's funny, but this is a great spoof right here. This is a friggin' awesome record. If you know this record, this is a spoof of the Herb Alpert record. I forget what the name of that Herb Alpert record, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. That's the name of that one. This is a spoof on that, and there's several spoofs on this. And this is Pat Cooper in a thing of spaghetti here, reminiscent of the sort of, I would say, Magical Mystery Tour when John Lennon is putting spaghetti on the woman's plate in the Magical Mystery Tour. Is probably the only funny thing in that whole movie. But anyway, speaking of funny, here's this guy, Jonathan Winters. Now, speaking of ethnic humor, I was wondering, why don't we see Jonathan Winters CDs? Why didn't they reissue any of these? And I have some great Jonathan Winters albums. And then I listened to one and I was like, yeah, there's like, it's the ethnic humor. It's the, the gay character is like, oh, he's doing that. It's like, and I do that, but I'm doing it as a woman. So again, I feel mixed feelings about doing the voice. But it's not, a pansy voice, as they, used to say back in Jonathan Winters' time. So, he was a big influence on Robin Williams, who was a big influence on me. And, this is great. My father was the one to turn me on. Here's a little bit of that, dressing up in drag, or, even the whole thing. There was another comedian who was kind of funny, Flip Wilson. He had a character named Geraldine. Jonathan Winters had Maude Frickett, and again, these are just opposite sex characters that they did. Jonathan Winters doing, this is the dress up thing, and you'd probably get in trouble in Florida if you did that now. But that was at the time. That was the thing. This is sort of a spoof on political campaigns, and this one's Another Day, Another World. I got a lot of Jonathan Winters stuff. This is a double album. It's a live album. And again, he's doing characters. He was great at improv and stuff. And here's another Alan Sherman record. My Son, the Folk Singer. That was a whole series of stuff. Oh, I have 2 copies of that one. Sometimes I have 1 copy that's stereo and 1 copy that's mono. Sometimes I just have 2 copies because I'm like, oh. This is it. This is the Bob Newhart Button Down Mind. He does a lot of the telephone spiel, which is really great. But Bob Newhart, again, was one of those comedians that when I was younger, I was like, this isn't funny. The Bob Newhart show, the one at the Inn in Vermont, I was like, man, it's not my thing. And then I heard, he did a spoof where at the end of the final episode, he brought back Susan Plachette, who was great in an episode of Columbo, by the way, and pretended it was like the old series. So it was kind of like a neat, kind of gag. Button Down Mind Strikes Back, so, and he's still with us. He's still alive as of the taping today. He's still with us. This is one that is really interesting. Urban redevelopment. It's kind of like a ode to Scully Square, and Scully Square was kind of like what Kenmore Square is to people of my generation who lived in Boston. It's a place that was very special, and now it's gone, and it's been urban renewal is what they call it. Gentrification is what I call it. But that's what happened. And there's the Prue building there. The Prue's just had been built, I believe, at that time. But there's commentary by Arthur Fiedler. Again, this is very Boston centric. This is autographed as well. So that's kind of cool. Pat McCormick. Where do I know that name from? Yeah. He was, he kind of looks a lot like that other guy from the A-Team. I'll think of his name in a minute. Not Mr. T, no. And Best of Washington, Chet Huntley. Chet Huntley. Was he David Brinkley's co-host? I don't know, but this is a Best of Washington humor, so that's interesting. All those politicians, including JFK. I'm going to guess that this was before he was assassinated, because it kind of was not funny anymore. Speaking of not funny anymore, but still hilarious, is W.C. Fields. And I got a couple of these. Classic. My father turned me on to W.C. Fields, and I think that's the same. This is Poppy. He did Poppy, and that's radio feuds with Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen. And Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy was one of the most popular radio shows at the time, and they were as a ventriloquist dummy thing. So, I don't understand. I just don't understand. There's another one. And here's the psychiatrist ones. This is a big thing. People were starting to get into analyzing, that my analyst, stuff like that. They were starting to really embrace the fact that you need mental health help, sometimes. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, let's make it fun. And Mom's Mabley, and this is she was talking about African-American comedians. She was among the first to get recognized in that realm. And here's one of my favorites, and this is unbelievable. The Firesign Theater, and if I could reform the Firesign Theater, I would do it, but instead I just try to ramble on and talk. And if I could find people that could do that kind of stuff, it would be wonderful, because this is just insane. And I still don't understand it, and my father turned me on to them. This one here, I don't know. Murray Roman. It's a ski thing, recorded at Aspen, Colorado, for the fancy people. It's probably not as fancy back then, but still it is very fancy nowadays. Skiing is like the sport of kings. There's another W.C. Fields. This is what the feuds with Edgar Bergen. I will take you and put you in the fireplace or some shit like that. That's what they usually said. Here's some more. This one's looks like a promo copy of that. This might take a while, so you can sit down and relax. Shelley Berman, Edge of Shelley Berman. Now, these records should have been better in order, but they're really not. But, you know, there's another Shelley Berman. I think I have 3 Shelley Berman records. Yep. Shelley Berman. Oh, here's a Music for a Casual Affair. You know, I don't think it's a record. I think it's a joke, like a joke record, because inside there's not a record. I bought this album for you as a gift. Sorry, I couldn't afford the record. And it's a gag. It's basically a card, you know, which is kind of funny, but it's not there's no record inside because it's not a thing. Pray Your Own Companion. I loved Garrison Keillor. And then I guess he got in trouble. He touched somebody's back, and he's been accused of some things and whatever. He's still around. He's still doing it, and I love him. But like, I don't want to have him over for dinner. Phyllis Diller, I'd like to have you over for dinner. She was a friggin' nut. She was awesome. She lived to be about 212 years old. And Bill. Okay, we got Rusty Warren. All right, we talked about that. Knockers Up. Is this Knockers Up? It's one of those songs for sinners. Good up. But then on the other side, speaking of sinners, boom, boom, we got Mr. Cosby. Oh, shit. What do you do now? What are you supposed to do with this? I don't know. Do I listen to it? If I do, people are going to say, hey, what are you condoning? I'm not condoning anything. I can barely speak. Oh, there he is again. All right. Well, I grew up with Fat Albert, and I enjoyed that show tremendously. And especially the music, the source music for Fat Albert was awesome. Bill Cosby, another one. He's riding down the road trying to get away from the police. I don't know. Oh, there, I got 2 of those. So more Bill Cosby. Sorry, we'll go through this. Yes, here he is. Hal Holbrook. Mark Twain. Great, at that point, he was nowhere near the same age as Mark Twain. But later on, he kind of grew into the part, if you will. But Mark Twain lived in the town that I lived in and went to school in Connecticut there, Reading, Connecticut. He lived there the last part of his life, died there in 1910. Went out with Halley's Comet, came in with Halley's Comet. Orson Welles. This is some kind of like throwaway thing. I think Orson Welles just recorded, and probably when he was drunk. Paul Mason, wine. Here's Hugh Romney. No relation to Mitt Romney, I don't think, but Wavy Gravy, awesome psychedelic humor, which is great because you don't have to have a punchline. Peter Ustinov, who's a personality, he's a brilliant humorist, which is great because I'd like to be a humorist, even if I'm not funny. You could just say you're a humorist. Well, it's a experiment. This is a record without a sleeve, National Lampoon record, Radio Dinner. I don't know what that is. Oh, this is one that was my father's. Don Imus, what a fucking asshole. This record, this honky's nuts. This is like pretty fucking awful. He uses the N-word and does all kinds of shit like that. It's X-rated, but he was an asshole. My father and Don Imus and Lee Harvey Oswald were all in the Marine Corps in 1957 in the same place, which is kind of funny. All right, here's a very old one. This is a blooper record. Pardon my bloopers. This is where I think this Kermit Schaefer, he was a guy who, and then back in the 80s, it was Dick Clark and Ed McMahon had the bloopers show, and this guy was an influence on that whole thing, collecting all the mistakes and everything off the editing floor. And I have 2 of those. This is the second volume. What do we got here? Oh, Firesign Theater, another perfect, combination there. Oh, I love this. Marx and Lenin, it's the other one, so relax, it's okay. Eric Idle and Neil. This is the basically the Ruddles, and this is Ruddles Rutland. This is kind of funny. Those 2 guys were responsible for the Ruddles. Laurel and Hardy, two of my favorite early on. I resemble this guy a little bit too much sometimes, especially when I'm a little bit heavy. And of course, the king, Lenny Bruce, the sick humor of Lenny Bruce. These are old. These are fantasy reissues, probably from the 80s. Love that. Just imagine seeing that in the, back in that time period. This is Lenny. And poor Lenny, thank you, Masked Man. Talk about a bit that was like a little bit dated now. Thank you, Masked Man. It's like, I don't know. Midnight Concert of Lenny Bruce. He kind of like in like 1966, before he died, he was obsessed with his trial and kept going on. And during his performances, he basically just was like, talking about his trial. And it's kind of funny because I know someone just like that. This is another Lenny Bruce record, The Story of Lenny. What I was arrested for. That's a perfect example because he just kind of kept going on and on about his busts for obscenity, and he had a point, but he was so fucked up that his point was a little bit, cloudy at points. Cloudy at points on the point. Body songs, more body songs. Backroom Ballads, sung by Oscar Brand. And I don't know if you've heard that name before. This is kind of funny, but it's not. The Temple City Kazoo Orchestra. So, like, this is, like, fun to listen to for, like, 5 seconds. And then it's like, shut the fuck up. Smothers Brothers. These are great. This is a great brother team. Again, one of those things, it's, like, corny. Right, but then you kind of look underneath the corn, and there's some funny shit and some like topical, social kind of stuff under there. Very smart to do that way. Smothers Brothers, that way it's acceptable to a wider range of people, and then they're like, maybe he has a point. I like that funny guy, the dumb one. And the dumb one was smart, the smart one was dumb, like Laurel and Hardy kind of thing. Rowan and Martin's Laughing, very big influence. Richard Nixon was on that show. I wonder how much he got paid for that. Stan Freberg, another one. Oh, yeah, my father turned me on to Stan Freberg. An amazing guy, an amazing humorist. Just love this stuff. He was just great. There's another Stan Freberg. One right there. We've got another David Fry, and this is the political humor thing. And this is great. After Nixon was gone, what do people who imitated Nixon do? I don't know. 1983. This was the first comedy record I bought for myself, and I remember my cousin Alan and I sat in my room. And we listened to this record, and it was like, ooh, wow, and again, talk about humor, and this is 82, yep, talk about humor that doesn't age well, and I think one of the reasons why he's always been reluctant to go back out there is because of the whole AIDS thing and a whole homophobic, bullshit. And, it just got real after listening to this. You can understand that it's not really, didn't age well. Let's put it that way. And a lot of these comedy records don't age well. This is an early African-American guy. He's got a cool telephone. I got a phone like that. And he's calling Prez Collect. And this is probably one of those things that... recorded in living room and stuff. Oh yeah, here's Dave Chappelle. This is, I understand this was powerful. This was great, and it just, it's. But Dave Chappelle, I don't know what the fuck happened to him. Same with Chris Rock. I don't know what the fuck happened to him. He's like, oh, woke is stupid. I'm like, what the fuck? Really? Well, speaking of woke, look at this one here, Jose Jimenez. Yeah, another one that didn't really age well. Bill Dana did a lot of Ed Sullivan appearances, played a Mexican-American fella. He's like, Jose, can you see? Ha, 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 ha. Speedy Gonzalez. Yeah, basically. Mort Saul. There's some more Mort Saul. And I do a Mort Saul imitation. I don't know if you know that or not. Oh, here's the king to me. One of my top 3. Bill Hicks. And this is Rant in E minor variations, and I think it's just the Rant in E minor album, like different cuts from, different bits from that Rant in E minor. And I love this on vinyl. It's awesome. We're almost there, folks, so just bear with me. And I know it's difficult, but afterwards we're gonna have refreshments, so just hold tight. And we also have the door prize. We got the 50/50, and we also have just a couple of housekeeping tips here. This is Freeman and Murray, featured on the Sonny and Cher show, so that'll tell me whereabouts that is. There's another fella dressing in drag who better not show this in Florida. There's some African-American guy, you better not show this in Florida. And there's a hippie guy, better not show this in Florida. So this was a comedy duo. It was a biracial comedy duo. Biracial? No, it was a mixed race. Can we say that? I don't know. Is that sound? That sounds a little weird, but there was an African-American fella and another fella here who looks like Sonny Bono. Anyway, of course, more Lenny. This is a great concert here. That's an earlier one. Here's another guy. I never really heard of this guy. This is 70s stoner comedy. You could tell by his jacket. Cool jacket, dude. Yeah, this excellent. First Rush. His brain is like, my brain is in a thing. It's funny stoner. Anyway, here's another one. This is an autographed one. Joe Glazier sings "Garbage" and Other Songs of Our Time. This sort of political, humor type of thing. People were more open to that, later in the 60s and in the 70s. Here's some more body stuff. Apparently it's censored though, so I don't like censored. I like when they don't blur things out. And here he is. This is number one for me. Not this record, but the George Carlin is a big influence, just personally. And also my father was the one, these are my father's records. He would close off the living room doors with my uncle, and they put it on the hi-fi and be like, kids, stay out, we're listening to adult things, And then he would listen to those records. And there's several of those. That one came out in about 87. That was funny. Ronald Reagan bashing, which is, you didn't really hear that much of it. And George, of course, was the first one to do that. Some more of those. These were my dad's Toledo window box. Love that one for different reasons. Occupation Fool. That's a great idea. When you were in school, people hated you because you were trying to be funny, and sometimes it didn't come out right, and you were kind of ostracized for being a weirdo. And I can relate to that because whatever. But anyway, there's another. Just was place. This is 80s. Place for my stuff. He was kind of going back and doing when it was a time when political humor was a little. He did more observational humor, but he could do it all. George Carlin. He was understandably a god to everybody. Cheech and Chong, some pot humor there, and we always like that. Oh, here's another big influence that my dad turned me on to, Fred Allen. Fred Allen was a radio personality, sort of like a Dave Letterman of his time, I think, for the radio. Would always say things he shouldn't say about NBC, which is very much like Dave Letterman was at the end there, and Conan and everybody else. But was he brought on, he had ethnic characters come on. He had Titus Moody. He was the guy from Maine, and he ended up being the Partridge Family. He ended up being the Petridge Farm commercial guy. He's like, Petridge Farm remembers. That was Titus Moody. I forget what his... and the guy who played Fred Flintstone was also Falstaff something or other. I have to listen to that. I haven't heard that in a while. Here we go. Talk about Dave Letterman. Here's a Steve Allen, and this is a record. Story, music, and lyrics by Steve Allen. And Jane Meadows, his wife, is on here. So that's interesting. And then, of course, this is, again, one of my favorite and one of my idols is Bob and Ray. This record is open. I think I opened it. And that's another discussion before the battery runs out here. I want to talk to you about opening records that are still sealed. You know, like I said, there's a possibility that the records might warp due to the shrink wrap continuing to shrink. So maybe we're in a time here where it's good to enjoy these things. Don't keep everything wrapped up. Use the good china, okay? Open the records. I have 8-track tapes. Open the 8-track tapes. Listen to them. You know, maybe film it, but enjoy it and enjoy life. And that's, I think, the main message, even if some of that message got muddled with comedians back in the day with sort of the dodgy, subjects. But that was their message, was to enjoy life. And that's what I'm going to do right now.